Greetings Exile and welcome to yet another build guide. Do you want to play the character with the smoothest playstyle and progression curve I have ever played? Are you looking for a bow build that is both tanky and deals massive damage while quickly clearing maps? Oh wow, tried to say that 5 times in a row. Quickly clearing maps, yeah. Are you looking for an allrounder that works with any amount of investment to get you through every stage in the game? Does it sound interesting? Well, then, if you like all of that, and if you would like to try an energy shield based character, the Toxic Rain CI Trickster should be on the top of your personal list. Toxic Rain combined with various Ascendancies and a great diversity of offensive and defensive scalings has been around since its release about 2 years ago. I think it was Delve League. The build I am going to present you is a pure energy shield CI Trickster, which focuses on chaos damage over time and attack speed scaling while maintaining a lot of evasion, movement speed and dodge. All of this and the insane scalability against bosses with or without the use of cluster duels, and you got yourself the smoothest character that I personally have ever played. Before we jump into further detail, I would like to tell you that this is a PoE assisted build. The PoE includes all written information, pretty much just like a written guide within the notes section. I am offering you 4 different gear sets for any stage of the character with life or energy shield gear. I offer you a lot of skill gem setups, leveling progression and ascendancy progression, and yeah, pretty much you need to know is within the PoE. Also, I would like to ask you if you install the PoE community fork. In there you will have more advanced settings and more precise calculations. A video link on how to help you with that is down in the video description, and I'm probably going to post it up here somewhere. But let's have a look at why this character is so strong. The main focus in here is energy shield, and you're using the combination of CI plus energy shield and a really big energy shield recharge, which means you're not going to have any problem sustaining your high energy shield pool. Patient Reaper from your Ascendancy and Wicked Ward as a keystone from the passive tree will give you insane amounts of energy shield recovery, which means within maps, even if you get hit by a strong hit, you're usually going to be back at full energy shield after just like 1 second. We are using Chaos Inoculation, which is CI. That's a keystone on the tree, which makes you chaos immune but puts your life to exactly 1. This means that we only need elemental resistances and energy shield on our gear as our defensive stats. The main damaging ability in this build, which is Toxic Rain, actually has some quite interesting mechanics, which I'm going to talk in a little bit about. But overall, most of the damage comes from overlapping multiple of these spores and uses of Toxic Rain to pretty much not just have rain, but just like a waterfall of toxic. So we are combining this with high attack speed and movement speed from the Ascendancy, passive, duels and other gear to get not only just around half a screen AoE effect with just 1 click, but also huge damage scaling against big and slow targets. You might wonder why I said big and slow targets. Well, this is where our first weakness comes in. Although the map clear and the theoretical single target damage is insane, if you're fighting against fast moving or even teleporting bosses, you are going to have a bad time. But more about that, because that's more like a skill mechanic, in a second. The other weakness in this build, the build only has like 2, I couldn't find any more, is that you are going to have mana problems. Really big mana problems. But don't worry, I'm going to present you multiple options on how to overcome these issues. The playstyle of this build is probably as easy as it gets. You point your cursor where you want to shoot or where you want to have your maximum DPS, then you shoot, and then you move on. So as long as you are shooting directly at your target, then you are going to have your maximum DPS. Against bosses, you can also place down wither totems for a 90% chaos damage increase taken by the enemy, and you can use frenzy for some frenzy charges and easy curse application. Okay, so let's see. I want to show you some skill mechanics now. Really important is that the spores that are being created, these are the spores. Let me zoom in. These things are the spores. Those have an chaos damage over time area of effect aura around them. And this is what we are going to scale in this build. Really important though is that these can stack. So if I have two of them right next to each other, enemy standing in between them or in close proximity to them, I'm going to disable my golem here real quick. If there's an enemy standing close to both of them, that enemy is going to take damage from both of those. So, in order to scale our damage, we are going to need a high attack speed, so we can spawn as many spores as possible. It is also really important that the longer the spores are active, the more maximum DPS we can get. Because if a spore stays 3 seconds, then we can stack up our damage for 3 seconds and then we reach our actual maximum DPS. I hope you know what I mean. So, yeah. Something else that's quite interesting is that if you are adding projectiles, like you would think, hey, if I have like 15 more projectiles, then I would have all of them in this circle right there, like where they all spawn, then I would have 15 of them there. That's actually wrong. If you have additional projectiles, they are going to spawn further away from the focus point. So additional projectiles only really help with map clear, but not with single target damage. And for everybody out there who is a PoE hunter, there's something really important here to note, because the damage that PoE shows is the DPS of a single spore with each attack. But in reality, it's always like at least 3 spores that are sharing their AoE on top of your target. Usually it's 4, and against the biggest targets, it's even 5 or 6, or depending how many projectiles you have. So the damage PoE shows is actually 3 times, or you have to multiply the damage that your PoE shows by at least 3 to know your actual single target DPS. The leveling to maps on this character was super easy. On level 1 you can choose Cobra Lash or Caustic Arrow, depending on what weapon you would like to use, and on level 12 you can already swap over to Toxic Rain. As Ascendancy I went Patient Reaper first, then I went for Ghost Dance, then Escape Artist, and then Prolonged Pain. Within the Bandit quest in Act 2 I chose to kill all for the 2 passive points. There's no real other good option, maybe Alira if you're really struggling on resistances and mana regen early on. A lot more detailed information, and you're going to hear me say this a lot within this video, can be found within the PoE in the notes section. So this is the PoE, and up here in the top there's the notes section. There you have pretty much everything that you need. But for now I want to go over the gear setups. I have 4 different gear setups. One is for life starter gear, one is for CI starter gear after you already converted from life to energy shield, then what I'm going to talk most about, the CI endgame gear, and then some min-maxed examples of what you would be looking for if you want to put this build on its maximum potential. Even though I have like 4 different points in there, the character progression and also the cost is a pretty smooth experience. So depending on how much currency you want to spend, you will find your full gear for that price. So For example, you want to start out with 10 chaos, then you upgrade to a price of like 2 exalted, and then you go for like 30 exalted or whatever. You can actually go up to infinity, I believe, up to fully mirrored gear or stuff like that. So yeah, this is also the main reason why progressing through content was so fun, because once you maybe get a new helmet, then you can focus on your builds, and then you can focus on gloves again, and then you go get an amulet, and then again you go get a chest piece, and then you go get a ring, and then you get a helmet again, then you get another ring, and then you get a belt, and you know, there's always something to improve here. There's nothing that would be like best in slot, because we are barely using any uniques here. So the gear you can see here is actually quite expensive, but not because it would be expensive on the market, but because I crafted it myself and I didn't have any luck. So this belt is, well, actually pretty damn good. This was actually 4 exalted to craft for me, but it has chaos resistance on there, which I do not need, but the energy shield rolls are pretty nice. You can actually find pretty much the same rolls for a lot cheaper. The bow, I bought bases that had all these 3 stats: level of targeted gems, damage over time multi, and attack speed, and 1 or 2 other stats. Then I tried to annul them until I only had the 3 stats that I want here. And then I multi-modded and crafted and all of that, and it cost me a total of around 7x. You can find something with just a little bit less power for like 20 chaos. The chest piece for me was only 4 exalted. I already bought it 6-linked, you don't need to buy it 6-linked, and it only has energy shields, so there are going to be a lot of those on the market. The rest of the gear is actually pretty damn cheap. I paid around 3 exalted for all of the rest here. For example, a 20% less powerful character right now would be around 3 exalted in total. So instead of spending, I don't know how much I spent, maybe like 15 to 17 exalted, if you just spend 3 exalted, you can get pretty much the same outcome with a little bit less DPS and a little bit less energy shield. So there's nothing really special in gear since we are not using uniques. The only unique I am using is the Soul Strike Quiver, which grants us attack speed is damage, energy shield is our primary defense, and faster start of energy shield recharge means that if you get damaged, it doesn't take so much to start your energy shield recharge again. Even though it has reduced energy shield recharge rate, this is still worth to take. Other than that, I've been talking about the bow already. So I got these 3 stats and then I multi-modded. Within the PoE you will find a lot of other options of bows, so you don't have to go all in on this one early on. There are really cheap other options you could go for. On the helmet, I tried to craft a minus chaos res helmet. This is why it is hunter influenced. You do not need the hunter influence for just energy shield, intelligence, and resistances. That's it. Then that's the same for the boots and the same for the gloves. The gloves don't need the shaper influence. And actually fingerless silk gloves is a really bad base for this one. Sorcerer gloves would be better because of the higher energy shield and we are not dealing spell damage. But I had these lying around, so I took them because why not? On the boots, same again, energy shield, resistances, and movement speed here. On the rings, energy shield, resistances, and I crafted minus mana cost. On this ring, energy shield, resistances, attack speed is damage, and minus mana cost. I already have shown you the belt. It's just energy shield, some strength, and maybe some resistances. On the chest piece, the same, energy shield, resistances. And on the amulet, I have a damage focused amulet, which has +1 to level of all chaos skill gems and 15 chaos damage over time multi. It also has some ally resistances and I crafted energy shield, but yeah, this one is pretty damage oriented. So if I would want to, I would easily get above 10k energy shield here if I just change the amulet and the gloves for something that is more suited for my build actually. I actually don't want to go into jewels here because all the information you need is within the PoE. So I'm just using energy from within here, and on my cluster jewels, I am using a large cluster jewel with 8 passives and increased chaos damage as implicit, with Touch of Cruelty, Unholy Grace, Wicked Pal, and 2 jewel sockets. Then I have 2 medium cluster jewels with 4 or 5 passive skills and 5 chaos damage over time multi, with the added passives as Eternal Suffering, Wicked Pal, and 1 jewel socket. This one over here is the same. And then I got 2 small cluster jewels with Energy Shield and Energy from Nod. One is down here, and the other one is up here. So yeah, again, more examples and useful roles and pretty much everything you need to know about jewels, and especially cluster jewels, can be found within the PoE. One really special jewel that I want to show you is the Thread of Hope, which is down here, right at the phase acro area. So this one is a Thread of Hope with a small ring. And socketing this one in here means we can get phase acro without going for acro. We don't want to have acrobatics because I'm not sure if it's big enough, but you should be able to read it. It says pretty much to the end there to the right, 30% less energy shield. And we are completely based on energy shield, so we don't want acrobatics. But phase acro, 30% chance to dodge spell hits is really nice. And also one of the biggest damage nodes you can get on this build is over here, Hunter's Gambit. Super huge damage, so getting this jewel, in my opinion, is definitely worth it. But keep in mind, it has a minus to all elemental resistances. Oh, and something I forgot to add, so I'm going to edit this into the jewel section of the video, is that I am using a Watcher's Eye down here. You don't have to use the same one. I just highly encourage you to, again, as I've only been talking about, just check the PoE. So go over into the PoE, check the node section, and there you have all the Watcher's Eyes I can actually recommend. Let's have a look at the enchants that I actually recommend, because, you know, not everybody knows what to take. And again, go over into the PoE, up here into the node section, which you can't see, never mind, there you go. Up into the node section, and there you have the enchants. On Helmet enchant, I've been using Toxic Rain fires 1 additional arrow. This means that you are going to have a little bit better map clear. It doesn't have such a high impact, but it's just nice to have. If you think you don't need more map clear, you can just go for Toxic Rain deals 40% increased damage, or if you have mana issues, you can go for one with Malevolence reduced mana reservation. On the gloves, I recommend something with Reflection. This can be a nice defensive boost because if you get hit, you sometimes spawn a reflection of yourself, and enemies can then focus that one instead of you. So yeah, some nice defense there. And on boots, I've been going for attack and cast speed. No, I've been going for movement speed, but you can also go for attack and cast speed if you've killed recently. These are both only active, or these are both only useful if you are in maps. For boss fights, there is no real good enchant. Okay, let's have a look at the flasks I've been using in this build. I often joke around that this game shouldn't be called Path of Exile, but it should be called Path of Flasks, because they are so freaking important. And that's also the same for this build. So what I went with was a Quicksilver Flask for some really nice movement speed. And then what is really important as well is a Quartz Flask for dodge and phasing. These two are the both mandatory flasks, I would say. And then you can choose whatever you want. I went for a Silver Flask, which grants Onslaught. Onslaught is a attack speed and movement speed buff, so really big for maps, and also some nice damage against bosses. And then I went for the both Evasion Flasks over here. Some flat evasion and some percentage evasion. I could have chosen one of those flasks as well as defensive ones, A Taste of Hate grants you a lot of less cold damage taken and also less physical damage taken. Granite Flask is armor, which then is also less physical damage taken. And a Basalt Flask, well, it says it on a flask, less physical damage taken. As I said, I went with these 5 flasks. If you want to go for more map clear, more area of effect, and more projectiles, you can go for a Dying Sun. But on this build, I tried it out and I felt like this is not that important because it's actually quite expensive now. So yeah, if you got the currency, you can definitely try it out. It feels a little bit nicer, but it's nowhere necessary. I always use these high flasks. If you have a huge mana issue, you can use a Divine Life Flask with the mod Enduring. So you can see there, the prefix is the Enduring mod, which says, why is it 25% out of 30%? Never mind. But this pretty much means that you click the mana flask and for the 3.8 seconds duration, you cannot run out of mana. It doesn't matter what types of flasks you are using, you always want to make sure that you have a few base immunities on them. Right here I have Bleeding, on my Onslaught Flask I have Curse, and on this Evasion Flask I have Freeze. These are the 3 most common things you will encounter in maps. Freeze can kill you if you click on a strongbox and you don't have freeze immunity, it freezes you, and there are 50 mobs around you, you're dead. Bleeding, if there is corrupted blood somewhere and you are actually hitting with your skill, even though you're not hitting a lot, but you're actually hitting with the skill, can easily kill you if you don't watch out for the bleed. Curses are just super annoying. If there is like a temp chains on the map, then you're super slow, both movement and attack speed. If there is elemental weakness, then you are most likely not kept on your resistances anymore, and yeah. So I recommend Bleeding, Curse and Freeze. What I also recommend, especially for energy shield characters, is Ignite and Burn immunity. Because if you are ignited, or if you are burning, your energy shield is not going to start recharging until the burn went away. So this is really important for energy shield characters as well. As anointment selection, there are a lot of different anointments you can choose from, but there are 3 that I want to mention here. The first is Freedom of Movement. I'm taking this one on pretty much any character I'm starting in the league because it's super cheap, it grants phasing, it grants some evasion, and it grants movement speed. Later on, when you feel like you need boss damage instead of some speediness, you should go for Exceptional Performance. It's a huge single target damage buff. Overall, Growth and Decay is a really strong damage node as well, even though on single targets is less than Exceptional Performance, but it has 100% uptime and Exceptional Performance only against big targets, and yeah, we talked about the skill effect duration here. So yeah, Growth and Decay as my go-to endgame anoint probably. But keep in mind this one is very expensive, it already has 1 golden oil in there. Defensive wise, just take anything with energy shield, movement speed, or evasion, or dodge. Or if you need mana, then you can go for mana regen, mana cost reduction, something like that. There are a lot of different variations and you can see a few here, but there are also a lot within the PoE nodes. Now let's go over all the skills and the links I have set up. There is one 6 link that is kind of bound to your bow as long as you have a bow with +2 level of socketed gems or socketed support gems. If you don't have such a bow, then even the 6 link is open to move wherever you want. Other than that, we only have 3 4 links, 2 2 links, and 2 single socket things. So feel free to move them around wherever you want, wherever you have the best and easiest color setups. So let's start with the main 6 link up here in my bow. So obviously Toxic Rain, level 21, 23 is not necessary, helps with damage a little bit. And then we are going to use our green support gems, which are Void Manipulation, Vicious Projectiles, and Swift Affliction. If you don't have Awakened gems, don't worry, you're still going to be dealing more than enough damage. My red gems are Empower and Damage on Full Life support. Why damage on full life? Because we are always at exactly 1 life. So we are always counting as full life. Or we are dead. So we are either full life or dead. So we always have the high damage multiplier from this gem. Also against bosses, against bosses I'm using Vicious Projectiles. But when I'm mapping, I like to use Mirage Archer, because Mirage Archer helps you with clear speed. It fires the arrows sometimes in a direction where you wouldn't aim naturally, so yeah. Mirage Archer for mapping and Vicious Projectiles for bossing. The first 4-link I want to talk about, and again, feel free to swap around the 4-links however you like, is my Frenzy Curse on Hit Despair setup. I'm using Awakened Curse on Hit, so I'm using Temporal Chains in here. If you do not have Awakened Curse on Hit yet, because that's an endgame gem, so normal Curse on Hit, you would use additional accuracy instead of Temporal Chains. The second 4-link is down here, which are my Wither totems. Wither linked with Spell Totem support, faster casting, and multiple totem support. Wither is a strong debuff that lets the enemy take up to 90% increased chaos damage, huge damage buff, and you're going to use that against bosses. The third 4-link is in here in my chest, which consists of my auras, which is Flesh and Stone, Malevolence, and Discipline, linked to an Enlighten. If you do not have an Enlighten level 4, then you are not going to be able to use all 3 of those. I would suggest you are not using Flesh and Stone, so you're only using Malevolence and Discipline if you don't have a high level Enlighten. Then we are also having 2 links. Again, you can swap 1 link in here and then, swap around wherever you can get the best color setups. 1 link is Immortal Call linked with lower level cast when damage taken. I have it on level 6 cast when damage taken and a level 8 Immortal Call. Down here is your movement ability, dash, super OP. I'm wondering why it didn't receive a nerf, but we still have it, especially in combination with Second Wind, it's really good. Then we have our 2 solo gems, and there's quite some variation in here. For bosses, I like to use my Lightning Golem. The Lightning Golem grants some attack speed, so it is a little bit easier to dodge because you are freeing up yourself earlier from your attack animation, and attack speed is obviously more damage because you can place more spores on the ground. And then I'm using a level 1 Clarity. This is because I am using a Clarity Watcher's Eye for the minus mana cost, which I'm going to talk in a bit about. Other than that, if you're not wanting to use the Clarity, you can use a Portal, which I've been using instead of the Lightning Golem within maps. So you don't have to carry Portal Scrolls with you. Or you can use Withering Step, which I personally, well, you would need a green socket in here, which I personally do not really like, because it is something you have to activate. It grants you an elusive buff, but only until you attack, so then the elusive buff is gone. But what it does is it applies a few withered stacks in an area around you. You can see this small green area around my Flash of Stone right here. So yeah, it's some nice damage if you want to have a little bit more active playstyle. I didn't like it, so I went with Portal or some Lightning Golem in there. In the beginning of the video, I've been talking about one of the biggest problems of the build would be mana sustain. And now that I pretty much talked about everything in this build and we understood almost everything of the build, it is now time to look at how I manage my mana. So, why do I have to manage your mana? Well, I can show you. If I deactivate everything that has kind of like these mana rolls on them, I can mouse over my Toxic Rain and it has a mana cost of 35. This is way too much to sustain. Like, I can attack once and then it takes, close to a second maybe, until I can attack again. So you have to battle your mana cost somehow. You can get reduced mana cost, you can get minus mana cost, you can get more maximum mana, you can go for a mana flask, you can go for mana regen on the tree, on passives, as anoint, as on your gear, you name it, you can get it pretty much everywhere. And again, within the PoE, there is a really long section just talking about how to fix your mana, multiple options where you can choose from if you don't feel comfortable. And yeah, so what I did, for me personally, which is only possible in endgame because you only unlock these crafts once you have your Arion on rank 3, I believe it is. Is it Arion craft? Yeah, Arion craft on rank 3, which is usually pretty damn light into the league. So I have -9 mana cost here, -9 mana cost here, and now my clarity comes into play. I'm using a level 9 clarity, level 1 clarity, not for the mana regen, but because I am using the Watcher's Eye down here, which says non-scaling, oh my god, it's light here, non-channeling skills, well, it's actually not that light, but never mind, non-channeling skills have -10 to total mana cost while affected by clarity. So this is why I'm using a low level clarity. With all of that, my Toxic Rain goes down to mana cost of 7. So I can just spam it how much I want. I want to quickly talk about the mapping and bossing setups again, because that's a usual question I get below my videos. So in maps, I'm going to use Mirage Archer in my main link, and I'm going to use Portal instead of my Summon Lightning Golem. I do not bother using my Frenzy, and maybe against the map boss or against some really strong target, I'm placing down my Wither Totems. Against bosses then, I'm going to use, against bosses I'm going to use Vicious Projectiles, and I'm swapping out my Portal for my Lightning Golem. The reason for that is more attack speed means more damage, and Vicious Projectiles has a higher damage multiplier than Mirage Archer has built in. So you're going to deal a little bit more damage, but you lose attack speed, and the attack speed you can get back from the Summon Lightning Golem. And when I'm talking about boss fights, I'm not talking about bosses in maps. I'm talking about Conquerors, I'm talking about Sirus, I'm talking about Uber Elder, Shaper, maybe Atziri, Mastermind, just these huge instanced bosses. What you want to do against bosses is, like, let's say this waypoint is the boss. You want to place your Wither Totems in a little bit of a distance, not directly on top of them, because then they are going to get focused, and we are not a totem build, so they will die instantly without doing anything. So you want to place them a little bit distance to the boss, and once the boss is there, you can actually pre-fire. Like when it's a phased boss, you can pre-fire all your Toxic Rains on there, and once the boss is there, you want to attack with your Frenzy a few times. You will then notice that your Frenzy charges will go up here, up to 3, and the boss will get a curse from the Frenzy. That's pretty much it. So you place your totems, you pre-fire your Toxic Rain. Once the boss spawns, you attack him with your Frenzy, you jump away, you fire again, and then you fire again. Maybe you place your totems again, then you need Frenzy charges again. Just, yeah. It's actually pretty fast to do everything. The supports on the totem, even though it's a spell and we don't have a lot of cast speed, make it that you cast it pretty damn fast. The last thing, as always in my videos, because it's usually not really important, is the Pantheon. For mapping, I like to go for sort of Lunaris as major. It grants you some physical damage reduction, some movement speed, some projectile avoidance, you know, just some nice things in maps. If you have the problem that you're getting stunned a lot, then you can go for Brine King as well. But for bosses, and again, huge instance bosses, Shaper, Sirus, you name it, I would go for Solaris. As a miner, I have always been doing the Garukan, because 6% movement speed if you haven't been hit recently is, you know, usually up in maps and usually also up against bosses. Other than that, there are no really good ones. Maybe Aberrath if you don't have a Ignite and Burn Flask yet, but yeah, I would probably still go for Soul of Garakan here. And there you have it. My take on the toxic Rain CI Trickster, which has been around for quite some time, maybe not only CI but all different variations. I tried to make it as smooth and easy as possible, so I'm hoping that you're going to enjoy this build just as much as I did. Please remember to like the video if you like this video and post comments if you have any questions or any feedback. Also, if you want to see me in action, especially at league starts and sometimes in between the league, make sure to follow my Twitch at twitch.tv/play_like_J. If you don't want to miss out on any other awesome builds, then please subscribe to my channel. It really helps and it really feels good to see the number rise. So that's everything from me for now. Thank you very much for watching. I am Jay and I'm out.
What's this? A real challenge? You've finally caught my attention. Die.
This city is nothing. Rain of stars. Glorious flames. Be utterly
The others found
annihilated.
strength in their projections. They became reliant on them. I am not so foolish. Die.
Your lives are meaningless. Creation itself. Embrace. Glorious flames. Fury of the cosmos. Be utterly
Really
annihilated.
interesting enough to warrant all this pain. Die.
This world is doomed.
Die.
This city is nothing. Why resist? Obliteration. Be utterly annihilated.
Edge of death, my heart races. I am alive.
Everlasting fire.
You will long for
Non-existence. Is doomed. Everlasting fire.
meaning.
Is conclusion. Beyond, there is only horror. Everlasting fire.